Hello and welcome to the AIM webinar series presentation on unraveling the complexities of the $114 billion food supply chain. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping notes I'll be going over. First, it's the policy of AIM Inc. to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activities like this webinar shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. The AIM collaboration and work product policy states that committee meetings or webinars like today are held for the primary purpose of advancements in our industry, which necessarily involves development of work product intended solely for the public domain. AIM's developed this policy for the protection of its members who engage in this important collaborative effort. Some additional housekeeping notes. Today's webinar is being recorded. As a registrant, you will be notified when the recording is available. We'll also have a brief Q&A at the conclusion of the presentation. To take part in this, please submit questions via the Q&A option at the bottom of the application screen. I'm pleased to be joined today by two experts in the AIDC and food space, Patty Blessing and Susan Flake. A little background on our speakers, starting with Patty Blessing. She is the RFID Engagement Manager for the hospitality industry at Zebra Technologies. Her clients include the professional sports industry, restaurant chains, amusement parks, cruise lines, banking, and more. Patty has direct experience with retail, manufacturing, and healthcare, delivering automation solutions including RFID sensor technologies, temperature management, and data analytics. I also want to note that Patty is the vice chair of AIM and serves on committees with GS1. Also presenting is Susan Flake. Susan is Global Director of Business Development for Food Identification Solutions at Avery Dennison. Susan has over 30 years experience in retail, the last 20 of which have focused on expanding item-level RFID initiatives in both retail and hospitality. Susan was named as one of the Progressive Grocers 2023 Top Women in Grocery, was AIM's 2022 Professional of the Year, and is a contributing member of GS1's food industry group, helping to drive next generation solutions with a focus on inventory visibility, transparency, labor efficiencies, and food waste reduction through sustainability. With that being said, thank you both for being here. And Patty, I'll let you start by talking about some industry challenges.
Thank you, Michael, and good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. We wanted to start off with just an overview of the industry and some of the challenges that the food supply chain faces today. Understanding those challenges, certainly helps us to address them and to try to overcome them. Michael, if you'll turn to the next slide. When we think about the food supply chain, we know we have to start with the farmers and the fisheries. The average age of today's farmer is 58 years old, and there's an explosion of growth in small farm communities across the world. Small farmers, those with about 4 acres of land, represent 84% of farms today, yet they produce 1/3 of the global crop production. And today's fisheries are turning to aquaculture or farms to increase their production. Regardless of the size of the farmer or the fishery, they are turning to technology to improve crop production, to conserve water, and feed the global population, which today has doubled in the last 60 years. Capturing critical data about harvest includes conditions, location, and dates, and this information provides the foundation for traceability for a safe food supply. Of course, once that food is grown, we've got to move it through the supply chain. And that supply chain is a very complex matrix of logistics, and it relies heavily on over-the-road trucking. Trucking companies have seen a decline in available drivers, and today the industry has a shortage of about 60,000 drivers. And that shortage is expected to grow to 160,000 by 2028. That's a staggering number that will impact the supply chain. Today, with common sense regulations limiting the hours a driver can be on the road each day, increased fuel costs, and fewer truckers to move product, the industry truly faces the risk of supply chain disruptions, and the consumer can expect increased costs in the food they purchase at their local grocer and when they dine out. Managing those logistics of food can include tracking temperature, humidity, and other supply chain data to assure freshness, quality, and on-time delivery. Well, I don't know about you, but if you shop at a grocery store and find out, I'm sure you feel the impact of increased food costs. While inflation has slowed down, the price of food continues to climb. Consumer food service pricing was up 5.2% in December of 2023 versus the previous year at restaurants and other eateries. Restaurant prices are impacted not only by the increased cost of food, but also the increased cost of labor, energy, and other operating costs. Today, restaurants are adding additional fees and charges to their patrons' bills to offset some of those additional costs, and that's painful to all of us. To try to contain those costs, the QSR industry has started to automate more functions at the restaurant. Robotics is just one example of some of the things that they're doing to try to reduce the overhead and to improve performance and production at the restaurant. Increased price of dining is impacting the consumer's decision to eat out. The quick service industry continues to see a decline in traffic as consumers opt to eat at home, as the average cost of meals range from about $7 to $19 at some of the best known chains across the country. McDonald's saw a decrease in traffic of 3.7% recently, while Taco Bell and KFC, among others, experienced similar declines. Recently, news service Uproxx reported that McDonald's knows its high prices are hurting businesses, and CEO Chris Kempinski acknowledged the pressure is in rising prices on consumers that are making less than $45,000 a year is really impacting their ability to eat at their restaurant. One of the drivers of increased pricing in the food service industry is the cost and availability of labor. I think we all heard that California recently raised the prices of minimum wage to $20 per hour. The immediate impact of this was menu price inflation in California of 7%, higher than anywhere else in the country. In the recent weeks, we've heard New York and several other states that are also moving to similar wage increases. Just this week, the Department of Labor expanded the definition of overtime for salaried employees. Effective July 1st, the threshold for employers to pay overtime will jump from $35,000 to about $44,000. And by January 1st of 2025, it will bump it even higher to $58,000. The cost of these new regulations is expected to increase the operating cost of restaurants by $1.3 billion annually, which will result in increased menu prices. At the same time the industry is facing increased costs, they're also challenged to fill job vacancies as individuals opt for gig opportunities like rideshare and delivery services. And as the aging population of the workforce increases, the total available workforce continues to shrink. With turnover as high as 80% annually and the cost of hiring as much as $3,000 per employee for staffing and training, it's now a full-time job for a restaurant manager to manage the staff. The interaction of the employees with the guest influences their average total purchase, and oftentimes new employees do not have the experience to engage with the customer. As a result, QSRs are turning to technology like loyalty, which allows them to offer customers specific deals, and it's one of the fastest growing trends in QSR. Loyalty allows them to improve the customer experience through improved engagement. There's no doubt that margins are thin in the food supply chain. Mistakes in shipments or compliance issues can be very costly. In fact, as many as 2 to 4% of shipments may be misshipped annually. Misshipments can be the result of many different things: the wrong quantity, the wrong product, damaged product, incorrect packaging, or in some cases, product that is nearing expiration date. With a typical cost of $160 per misshipment, that impact to the bottom line is significant. One retailer recently shared with me that they estimate their cost of resolving a shipping discrepancy to be about $800 per incident and over 3 hours of manual labor. When product shipments are not as planned, there is a risk of low inventory or even out of stocks, ultimately impacting the customer experience. Recalls, market withdrawals, and alerts in the food industry are not uncommon. In December of 2023, there were 28 incidents alone. Last year, we heard about hundreds of children who were exposed to lead in cinnamon used in applesauce. At the same time, there was a multi state recall of cantaloupe. The number of people hospitalized each year from foodborne illnesses or tainted product is significant, and oftentimes those impacted are left with lifelong issues. Today, the average recall takes 57 days. The FDA continues to enhance the Food Safety Modernization Act to improve cooperation and coordination across the supply chain. And in 2022, the FDA passed the FSMA 204 rule to allow swift reactions when there is a recall issued. Food safety departments at each stakeholder within the food supply chain is, is critical to a brand's reputation and assuring supplier and consumer confidence. There's no doubt that consumers have become more engaged with where their food comes from and how it is sourced. They're also increasingly aware of food waste and the impact on the environment. Food waste can be the result of many things: product that has expired, products product whose shelf life is decreased because of improper storage conditions, and even product that is not delivered to the right place at the right time, which increases transportation costs and carbon footprint. While there are many challenges, there are also solutions that the industry leaders are turning to. These solutions leverage existing and new processes, technologies, and methodologies to help mitigate challenges, improve operational efficiencies, and meet profitability objectives. I'm now going to turn it over to Susan to share some of the insights into some of those solutions.
Thanks, Patty, and good morning, good afternoon to all. So, with all the hurdles that and challenges that are being faced in the food vertical, together, Zebra Technologies and Avery Dennison has for about the last 25 years partnered together to deliver solutions from farm to fork, actually. So when we think of farm and how we put digital identity on product flowing through the processor and understanding that transformation that may happen, and then inbound and outbound through the DC, and make sure that we're rotating properly and we have expiry management down and we're shipping accurately to the restaurants and grocers and C-stores and food suppliers, and then ultimately out to the consumer, again, creating a digital process of which the consumer can now today link back to that farm and understand where their product is coming from. And so literally for the past 25 years, Avery Dennison and Zebra Technologies have partnered together to deliver solutions across the board, in the farm from fork. Three main drivers for this: inventory visibility, labor efficiencies, and reduction of food waste. Those we think are the foundation for everything else that's going to occur, and it's much rallies what we saw in apparel. Inventory visibility was a foundation for RFID and traceability and knowing inventory accuracy. Out of that came your omni-channel, your unified commerce, your out of stock, your loss prevention, and all the other pillars that stood on top of that inventory visibility. We see that same ethic running through in the food vertical as well, where inventory visibility is going to be foundational to stand up those other pillars of operational efficiencies, product traceability, expiry, food waste, and food safety. There's lots of ways that we can digitize the product flowing through the food supply chain, and we see that today. Everything from the code 128 with the 2D digital link, with RFID, with camera vision, with AI, and we're starting at the farm. Digitalization can be used at every point throughout. We'll know that product, all the extended attributes. That means the date it was packaged or the date it expires, the lot number, the weight, the catch weight if needed, but all of those extended information and attributes on a case-by-case basis. Having that type of granularity just leads to more productivity and more gains throughout the supply chain. So the further back that you can tag, the more benefits that you will have along the supply chain. And technology today is enabling unique serialization. So that's not knowing that it's a case of lettuce, but it is this case of lettuce with a specific number, a specific serial code, in multiple ways, again, through 2D, through RFID, machine learning, camera vision, AI. All of these are complementary technologies that are only increasing the visibility along the supply chain for you. We get asked a lot about benefits, and most are under the assumption that the benefits only happen at the restaurant and the food retailer. That's not quite the case. There are benefits along the entire supply chain. So for supplier, they have a number of benefits. Distributors and DCs, they have a number of benefits in addition to the restaurant and food retailer. For supplier and distribution, it's improved inventory accuracy. It's traceability and authentication at source for the supplier, shipment accuracies out to that DC. It's being effective with your recalls. Now that you know where that product shipped along the supply chain, being able to surgically remove the product if there happens to be a recall in hours and minutes, as opposed to the 57 days Patty referenced earlier. Being able to connect with the end consumer and having that brand story, so knowing where the product come from as an end consumer, but then on the flip side, the supplier being able to, what traditionally has been they've not been able to connect with that end consumer. This way, they're actually being able to connect with the product that the consumer is purchasing. Dwell time visibility, really important how long a product is sitting there. Are we overproducing, underproducing? And getting visibility into dwell time really will lead into insights as to what production needs to be, as well as a freshness guarantee. Distribution is signed up with suppliers, and suppliers have guaranteed, I'm going to give you 14 days worth of freshness of this product. Distribution, in turn, is signed up with restaurants and food retailers saying the same thing. I'm going to deliver it with 12 days of freshness, and being able to actually, not because you're no longer manually counting, but you're counting now with a digital process and getting insight to that freshness level. And are they really complying with that freshness level? And shelf life visibility. So how long product is sitting on the shelf, and making sure that we're rotating and having proper expiry management as well. Being able to optimize the loads going out, being able to pick and pull and know the accurate product is going out to the end retailer, and not running back and forth as Patty mentioned, the number of hours that was taken, the man dollars wasted on trying to correct a chargeback, and all of that feeds right back into the bottom line. Margin protection, obviously a result of reduction of chargebacks, again, along the supply chain with effective recalls, and then accuracy of deliveries and freshness guarantee to the retailer. And then the restaurant itself, really, the reduction of food waste is key. Being able to now digitally collect your inventory in a matter of minutes as opposed to hours, and then having to transpose that, in most cases, off of paper and pencil into a digital format into their PC. And gee, was that a 3 or an 8? It was pretty cold in the freezer. I don't know what it was, and I really don't want to run back in there and check, so I'm going to guess. And that's unfortunately what happens. And when we think of inventory sitting on the back rooms of restaurants, that's about 35% of their bottom line sitting in the stock room. And to make a silly error like 3 versus 8 is not cost efficient. Thank you. So some of the um, solutions that the two of us as partners have worked together on is our inventory accuracy and visibility modules, which allows you to take inventory, to place orders, to receive orders, to transfer product between locations, to record waste, to do effective recalls, and being able to digitize this. So think of not doing it by clipboard and pencil anymore, and not having to retype that in, but actually capturing it with a mobile terminal, and then being able to upload that collected information in a matter of minutes and being far more accurate than you are manual. In the industry today, manual collection of data is around 60-65% at best. There's a number of reasons for that. You get interrupted, you lose your train of thought, you look at something and you think it's the same case of chips, and behind this case of chips and it's a totally different flavor, etc. There's a number of reasons why that number plummets when you do manual versus digital, where you're scanning a barcode, you're reading an RFID tag, you're getting that information via digitally. You're now able to go paperless, again, environmentally sustainable efforts there, with the ability to also gather the information in a number of different ways and being agnostic to the digital sensor. So whether that be, voice tap, RFID, camera, AI, uh, digital link, what have you, and being able to be agnostic to that um, collection, and then being able to take actionable insights on that as well. And then back of house operations. How do you streamline your back of house operations? How many can raise their hands and saying they're using a marks a lot to put the date and timestamp of something that is a prep and discard label? Again, and I've seen it many a times where they're just handwriting something and it's questionable as to what they're putting on there. And then if they only stamp it with the time, was that the time for today, the time for tomorrow, the time for yesterday? What is that? And just the effort of doing that manual process of figuring out in their head, 3 hours from now is what? Okay, and then another employee might say, oh no, that has a 4 hour shelf life. And do they go back and really check the chart and put down the accurate time? So how do you streamline that? How do you keep food safety upmost and forefront in your thoughts and make sure that you're putting on accurate prep and discard labels onto product that is prepped and moving out from the stock room into the kitchen area? So by prepping intelligently and putting labels on that are digitally correct, that are being created at the home office, being the menus are pushed out to all of the locations, and everybody's on the same menu, everybody's on the same uh, prep and discard schedule. And so thing of lettuce has 2 hours at every store, and labels are consistent at every store, and having that consistency and promoting food safety within that process. How are we taking temperature? Are we taking temperature? I've seen many red books, which are the temp log books, that are blank. They're literally just blank. So, or if you are, you're able to write them in and write all the temperatures at the end of the night and sign your name off and say, yep, that's what they were, when you haven't done it at all. So in an effort to kind of digitize the temp taking, having AI built into it and being able to auto recognize your prep line, it makes it more, it gamifies the process for your associates. Is very quick user acceptance and learning process, and it'll recognize, as you can see, that these are strawberries. It'll record the temperature digitally for you. It'll record who took the temperature, and it'll be available in a log whenever the inspector comes in and says, pull your logs for your prep tables. And it's all recorded digitally, without the user doing nothing more than snapping a picture of the product and allowing the temperature and the camera to marry together through AI in order to determine the proper temperature and if there's any corrective action that needs to be taken for that product to keep it safe. The same holds true for your freezers, your walk-ins, your coolers. Are you walking in there and checking them? Are you being proactive? Or is it during the middle of the night, one of your coolers goes out, and in the morning when you walk in to open up the restaurant or the store, you found that everything is either thawed or it's no longer safe to sell and you've lost your entire stock? Being able to have a sensor that is mounted on the interior of the uh, walk-in or the cooler or the freezer, and being able to digitally record that temperature and or humidity as well every 5 minutes, and creating a digital log. And then on top of it, when you set the temperature ranges that it's supposed to meet and you're 1 degree above, being able to alert you, hey, you're 1 degree, is that cooler going on the fritz and you need to do something and get service on there. So it's being proactive, letting you know something's not right within 1 degree, and being able to save that stock and correct that cooler and get it back in working condition. So as you can see, we talked about inventory visibility. We talked about, so anytime you count, move, transfer, what have you, order, deliver product under the inventory application. We've talked about back of house streamlining with labels, but also checklists and media, as well as prepping. And then lastly, with temperature, both on the food side of things, as well as the equipment for coolers and sensors. What are we really striving for? We're striving for food safety. We're striving for inventory visibility. We're striving for labor efficiencies, and we're striving to reduce food waste. And utmostly, we're putting our customers front of mind when we do these things. So with that, Michael, we'll hand it over to you for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and also thank you, Patty, for your time and your insights today. I will get into the questions here. Uh, the first, a couple questions that I guess I'll kind of combine them. Do you have any numbers on increased compliance due to the digitalization?
Yeah, we're 90 plus percent compliance, especially around recalls. So first time out, 90 plus percent on compliance rates. User acceptance is in the high 95 plus percent whenever we go to a digital solution. So we have very high compliance rates, and let's face it, everybody knows how to use their cell phone. We've put these things on mobile terminals. The generation that's in our food, it's very used to this technology, and it comes second nature to them. If you notice, everything has a graphical representation. We strive to make sure the learning process and the training process is 10 minutes or less on our solutions together, and for ease of onboarding, because we understand the market space, we understand that there's labor challenges and there's turnover and so forth. So how do we save and make the jobs easier for the associates? So compliance rate is very high for using of these applications on the mobile terminals.
And I would also add, that as we have a younger population that is helping at these stores, this, as Sue mentioned, we all know how to use our phones. This feels more like what they do every day, which is gaming and things like that. So it is very very comfortable. The other thing is that as our workforce also is more diverse, we have needs for visuals, and as you could see through some of the screens, just the use of icons is also very helpful for the user.
Great, thank you, guys. And another question we have is, how do you handle night key drops at quick service? And maybe you can explain to me, because I don't know what night key drops are too, as well.
So night key drops are where a distribution center can deliver to a QSR in the middle of the night. No one's there. They have the keys to the door. They deliver the new product. They move it into the coolers and the freezers as appropriate. And then when you walk in the morning, you have your new load. You typically would check it off, maybe with the ASN printed invoice, or maybe you don't. The way that the way with serialization, digitalization, it knows what's already existing. So these are net new products, and it's able to filter net new and not impact what's already existing. So very quickly what's new, especially with RFID. It'll filter out all the existing stuff and only show you net new on your receipt, so you can quickly reconcile.
And earlier I mentioned that one of my customers had told me about the cost of handling those discrepancies, and they in fact have night drops. And just identifying those discrepancies so that they can resolve them is really critical to them. But they also have a window from the time the product is delivered to the time that they can report the discrepancy that they're allowed to actually claim back. So, having the ability to use the serialization and digitalization to receive quickly and validate quickly what's in the store each morning is very critical to making sure that they get that discrepancy resolved.
Great. And again, I'm going to try to combine a couple questions here. After implementation, of some of these AIDC technologies, can you maybe talk to a little bit about the, reduction in food waste after implementation, or even the impact on the transportation of food, once these are, added to their supply chain?
Sure.
Sure.
So, without a doubt, by increasing visibility at the case level to the information about the product that we're receiving or that's moving through the supply chain, we can capture information and be provided with information, exception management that allows us to understand when product is nearing its expiration date, or even days away from production. So we can reduce waste by assuring that we circulate the product. There's in accounting, we've always heard of FIFO and LIFO, but with the advent of serialization and management by case level, we're able to actually use FIFO as well, which allows us to manage by first expiration, first out. And that does reduce significantly the amount of waste in restaurants.
In our rollouts and projects, we've seen about a 35% reduction in food waste, and that's due to a number of things. Properly ordering what you need because you have inventory visibility now, properly prepping the amount of product that you have for the sales that are going to happen that day, and having your prepping, being able to accommodate and reconcile your inbound inventories and get your shorts and so forth reconciled in a very timely manner. All of that we have seen across the board. The average for us for reduction of food waste is about 35%. You're also being able to now identify short shelf life, being able now to work with your suppliers and rectify that. So you're getting the product so you have the time to sell through that product as well. Another contributor to reduction of food waste.
Great. And another question I have that I think's pretty interesting, maybe get your take on this. Can these technologies not only solve some of the labor shortages, but even possibly increase the amount of farmers or drivers based on them seeing how these technologies make the job more efficient?
Certainly, again, employees, regardless of what role they play in the food supply chain, are looking to be more challenged and to have more active, roles in what they do. So by providing them with the ability to have access to data, to be actionable, to make decisions, or at least to notify people, it increases the value that they contribute and their role in the supply chain.
Great. And we'll just end on, oh, sorry about that, Susan. We'll just end on this question. You mentioned obviously several traceability solutions. How do you see these evolving once more organizations start to utilize blockchain and artificial intelligence? I know, Susan, you mentioned AI with the sensors. So how do you see that evolving over time?
So these are complementary, right? The more information that you gather, the more data that you have about a product, the more granular that you can get, the more actions that you can take, etc. So these technologies are complementary to each other, and we will only see them continue to be integrated and complementary to each other at a much more rapid progression going forward.